All right, guys. So, as a part of the closing arguments in the Derek Chauvin criminal trial, it got really fascinating. Okay, because the defense lawyer, for Derek Chauvin, Mr. Eric J. Nelson, basically made an argument that, this is probably a mistrial. Okay, and the reason why he said that is because he thinks that the jurors may be compromised. Okay, and part of the reason why is because of the things that Maxine Waters said. Okay, in regards to how the public should react if they don't get what they want. Basically, if they don't get a murder conviction for Derek Chauvin. Okay, and he brings up a very interesting argument that I do want to talk about because, the jury is anonymous now, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be anonymous in the future. And I do believe that, what Maxine Waters said, it really is a big deal because, if I was on the jury, right, I definitely feel like deep down, I would definitely be concerned about that type of rhetoric, right, and the potential reaction if the public doesn't get what they want. But I'm going to let you guys listen to this exchange between the defense attorney and Judge Cahill. You guys check it out.
Court this morning for closing arguments. We had an in-chambers discussion about events of this weekend, specifically referencing that an elected official, United States congressperson, was making what I interpreted to be, and what I think are reasonably interpreted to be, threats against the sanctity of the jury process, threatening and intimidating a jury, demanding that if there's not a guilty verdict, that there would be further problems, Your Honor. And given the fact that this jury has not been sequestered, it has been my position all along throughout the course of this case that this jury should have been sequestered at the outset. The jury has not been continually told to stay away from only media about this case. There is a high probability that members of this jury have seen these comments, are familiar with these comments, and things that have happened throughout the course of this trial. I mean, it's unfortunate that there was another situation that occurred during the course of this trial. All of this, the media attention is profound. I have admittedly stayed away from 99% of it, but that has required me to stay away from all media. This case has found its way into even fictional television, Your Honor. There were I was advised of two television shows in the course of the past few days that specifically involve references to this particular case and the reactions of the characters in these stories to this particular case. This jury has, despite all best efforts, has been bombarded with information relevant to this case. It is impossible to stay away from it unless you literally shut off your phone, or you shut off your TV, you shut off your computer, and no such instructions have been given during the course of this trial.
Well, to be fair, the last few times I've advised them, I told them don't watch the news. Pure and simple.
Right, but if you can't even watch your favorite Thursday night television program and it comes up, I mean, this is the problem, right? And why I have felt that this jury should have been sequestered from the very beginning.
Understood.
To make that clear. And so I had moved, based on this again, for a mistrial. The idea is that it is a public trial. I think the court has accomplished that, but the media attention is so profound. It is such a, it is such a modern comparison. I mean, it's such a modern problem to have now that we have U.S. representatives threatening acts of violence in relation to this specific case. It's mind-boggling to me, Judge.
Well, I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned. Yeah, you can supplement the record with whatever media reports. I'm aware of the media reports. I'm aware that Congresswoman Waters was talking specifically about this trial and about the unacceptability of anything less than a murder conviction, and talk about being confrontational. But you can submit the press articles about that. This goes back to what I've been saying from the beginning. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. I think if they want to give their opinions, they should do so in a respectful and in a manner that is consistent with their oath to the Constitution, to respect a co-equal branch of government. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent, but I don't think it has prejudiced us with additional material that would prejudice this jury. They have been told not to watch the news. I trust they are following those instructions and that there is not in any way a prejudice to the defendant beyond the articles that we're talking specifically about the facts of this case. A congresswoman's opinion really doesn't matter a whole lot.
All right, guys. So the defense attorney, Mr. Nelson here, again, he's making an interesting argument. Okay, he's saying that, listen, the jury should have been sequestered, right? Fully sequestered. Now, they've been partly sequestered, right? Partially, but not fully. Okay, and with this case being so high profile, I mean, it's probably the highest profile case we had since George Zimmerman, if not O.J. Simpson, right? In which both of those trials, the jury was fully sequestered. Okay, and you know, if you guys don't know what sequestered means, it just means that the jury is isolated, right? They're put in hotel rooms. You know, they can't watch the news. You know, they can't be influenced by outside people. Like, they're kept completely away, okay? And the argument that Mr. Nelson is making is interesting. He's saying that, listen, we live in a time where, you know, even on your smartphone, you get notifications about what's happening. You get notifications about the public reaction. You get notifications about what's going on in the outside world. You flip on your favorite TV show, even if it's not news related, they're still talking about it in some way. Okay, they're still talking about the impact, talking about, you know, what's going on in general when it comes to this trial. This trial is so high profile. Everybody's watching this thing. And his argument is essentially that it is impossible to get away from the news, right? And guys, I mean, living in a social media era, you know, I find it damn near impossible not to always be on your phone, right? And obviously, I don't think that's a good thing, particularly for our attention spans, right? Long term, I think that human attention span is going to really go to nothing. It already is long term from all this smartphone and social media use, but that's another video for another day. But for example, right, like you find it hard to stay off your smartphone, you're on Twitter, right? Or you just even texting somebody, or you're on Facebook. Like, this news is popping up everywhere, right? You have a news app. Bam, you get a notification about something that happened, okay? And Maxine Waters comments, and the reason why I've covered this so much is because they are important, right? She's a public official, okay? She works for the government, and her going out there and saying that if we don't get what we want, we have to be more confrontational. Well, what's standing in between Maxine Waters and getting what she wants? It's the jury. Okay, it's the jury has to decide whether or not they think that Derek Chauvin is guilty of, you know, second degree or third degree murder or manslaughter. Obviously, if they give him manslaughter, that's not going to be enough. Okay, so they got to get him for murder, or else people are going to be upset. You know, and what's unbelievable is, as the judge is literally saying to these elected officials, stop making inflammatory statements that undermine the judicial system, the mayor of freaking Minneapolis goes out and says this.
For being here today. As we await the verdict, there are several inescapable truths. Over this last year, our twin cities have experienced a barrage of trauma, all culminating with this trial and then the verdict. There's been pain and anguish, anger and frustration that is undoubtedly acutely felt by our Black and brown communities. Regardless of the outcome of this trial, regardless of the decision made by the jury, there is one true reality, which is that George Floyd was killed at the hands of police.
These are compromised people, guys. Politicians trying to get votes. They don't care about the outcome or how this may influence the jury, right? Or actually, maybe they do. Maybe they do. So they can get what they want. And again, I find it hard to believe that as if you're on a jury and you hear something like this and you know that in the future, your identity may be revealed in some way, shape, or form, it can be possible that they can be afraid, right? They can be pressured to say, I'm kind of up in the air about this. I don't really know. I'm just going to vote to convict of, second or third degree murder just so that, me and my family are safe, right, in the future, just in case, my identity is revealed in some way. Or they can be concerned about the possibility of riots and protests, right? As a juror, do you want to be responsible or partially responsible for whatever happens in response to this trial, right? Again, there are a lot of outside influencing factors here. So I think his argument is interesting. And, I do think that they should have been fully sequestered, right? They just should have been fully sequestered. And I think it is a mistake that didn't happen. The judge, counters and says, no, it's not a mistrial. But, this is something that you can use in an appeal if you want to overturn the result or try to overturn the result. Okay. And he basically says, well, we told him not to watch the news. I'm like, come on, man. Like, really? Just because you tell somebody to do something doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're going to do. But, at the end of the day, you either trust a juror or you don't. Right. If you trust them, then, hey, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, from a practical perspective, living in social media world, it's hard for me to say that they're not being influenced in some way, especially with the pressure of, riots and protests in the streets. But I think what the judge did say, I later on, I 100% agree with. In regards to these public officials like Maxine Waters, essentially going out here making these inflammatory statements and talking about this trial and this case in a way that's purely irresponsible. It really is. He says that what she says doesn't matter. Again, I disagree with that part of it. Okay, but I fully agree with, his part about how he wishes they would not comment on this stuff. Me too. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you're a major policy official in this country, you should probably avoid talking about this. You should probably avoid giving your opinion on it, right? Because you see, the Democrats want to walk out here and be like, well, he's guilty because it helps them politically. It helps them get votes. It helps them feel like they're fighting the system, even though they've all been lawyers, right? Most of them have been lawyers. They know how this stuff works. But they'll run out there and try to play to the crowd, which could possibly, again, tamper the results. It could tamper with the jury, right? I also think that it undermines our judicial system and really is a violation of their oath to the Constitution to uphold our rules and laws, right? We are a society built off of law and order, okay? We have laws for a reason, okay? We have traditions for a reason. The judicial system, right? The judicial branch, if you have issues with it, it is your job as a legislator to legislate and to try to fix those things. However, it's not your job to undermine the current system just so that you can try to get what you want. Again, in my opinion, they're undermining the Constitution when they do that, right? So I think he's 100% right about that. But in regards to whether or not what she says matters, yeah, it does matter. It does matter. These are public officials. And it's irresponsible for them to do that. Like I said, Republicans, right? A lot of them, conservatives, they may feel that Chauvin's innocent. A lot of them feel that he's guilty. But you don't see Republicans out here making statements about this like that, right? They're being responsible. Regardless of how they feel, either way, they're not saying anything, right? And that's the right thing to do. You shouldn't say anything because you're a public official. You have influence, right? When you talk, people listen. When you say do something, people do it. So it just goes to show the difference between how the Republicans and conservatives have handled this in a more responsible way than the Democrats. And that's part of the reason why, guys, I've avoided really talking about this stuff. One, because it's not my wheelhouse, right? It's not my area of expertise. But two, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I know something I don't know, right? I have no idea in regards to how this is going to turn out, right? Whether or not, there's reasonable doubt that, Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, regardless of whatever, drugs in his system or any other extraneous factors that was going on in that situation. I can't tell you that. I don't know. I think both sides have good arguments. And again, that's why I don't pretend to come up here and try to play lawyer and try to act like, oh, I know. Because I don't. Okay? At the end of the day, it's up to the jury. Right? And I wish, politicians, particularly Democrats, would be more responsible with their rhetoric, especially considering how, they want to go after Trump for the things that he said. Right? And then you turn around and you do the same thing for your own political gain. It's two sides of the same coin, man. And I will argue there's probably more Trumps on the Democratic side than there is on the Republican side. It really is. Right? Maxine Waters is nothing but the black female version of Trump. Let's keep it real. She really is. Right? Same thing can be said about AOC. Same thing can be said about Rashida Tlaib. Same thing can be said about Ilhan Omar. Same thing can be said about Cori Bush. I can name off a list of far left Democrats that, in my opinion, if you want to classify Trump as some type of extremist, right, and who uses extreme rhetoric, then you got to throw those people right in that same bucket. And in the case of Maxine Waters, because what she did and the statements that she's made, people can argue was Trump-like. Okay? She's not getting punished for that. The liberal media is defending her, even though they know it's irresponsible. And it's really a shame, right? But, that was an interesting exchange. We're going to see what happens, but who knows? I mean, this could be something that even if, he is proven guilty, they could try to appeal it and maybe overturn this ruling. Who knows, right? I mean, maybe Maxine Waters might have put her foot in her mouth, right? That could be what's happening here. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.